Arden. (6:39). I call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sarah, can you do roll call, please? Everybody turn your mics on for roll call.
Bucher,
Here.
Young,
Here.
Hopkins.
Here.
Gant.
Here.
Faber,
Yes.
Holy,
Here.
Barheit.
Here.
Thank you.
Did we meet open meeting compliance?
Yes, they were posted and put online on Friday, October 4th. Great.
Trustees, do you have any changes to the agenda sequence? I have one requested change, and that would be to do president's comments ahead of public comments. Is everybody okay with that? Great. Could I get the sign-in sheet, please? Okay, for president's comments tonight, first, I'd like to remind everyone that our November 4th board meeting is canceled due to the general election the following day. There will be a joint plan commission and village board meeting on October 16th, I believe, starting at 6 p.m. Is that correct? Brad? 6 p.m. Okay. And then we have an update on the baby box. I want to report that that has been fully funded by an anonymous donor. So whoever that is, I want to say thank you for that. I also would like to ask the trustees to stay on topic tonight and that the public be respectful and the trustees be respectful. So I'd like to take this time to say a few things. Over the last several months, there has been much public debate about the village's code enforcement policies, or really lack thereof. I was made aware of the many discussions throughout our community from many different sources. This is a mostly new board, and I am its new president. It's not lost on me how I came to sit in this position. I understand what this community has been put through. I've heard the stories. Some of them are my friends, some of you are not. But that is the whole reason that I ran, was because of the issues that this community faced. I do hear your concerns. The days of ignoring the public and not acting are behind us. That was the old board, the old administration. We are a new board and new administration. My goal has always been and always will be to make this village better. This board is made up of people that listen to the taxpayers and, more importantly, takes that feedback to heart. That is exactly what is happening tonight. Tonight, I am bringing forward a policy that I hope will address these concerns. Myself, other trustees, and staff have spent many hours engaging with the public, stakeholders, and I want to also mention Ramsey has worked very hard on this policy. I would like to thank those who have helped to get this to where it's being presented tonight. Pete Poley and I worked to come up with the first draft that we then sent to the attorney. Ramsey then cleaned up the language, and then I have worked with staff for the last week and a half through nights, weekends, many hours to come up with the proposal that I have distributed to this board and the one that many of you have in your hands now. If you didn't get a copy, they are on the table. This was not an easy task in such a short time frame. I want everyone to understand that government is not quick. That was something I did not know before sitting here. There was a lot of work and collaboration that went into that, along with many, many hours, many opinions. As you are aware, we have had an incredible amount of turnover of employees at all levels, including on this board. We are not the same village board or staff as previous. Leadership comes from the top, and our staff, as well as this village board, understand and have welcomed the new directives, vision, and expectations that have come under my leadership. I understand there will be debate with strong opinions, and if any changes are requested to this policy, I'm going to ask for a motion, a second, and majority vote of this board. We have to be held accountable. I hope that we can leave tonight with a passed policy and resolution that will alleviate the concerns of our hardworking taxpayers while keeping the village safe within the law and our ordinances. There is a need for a delicate balance of code enforcement, one that helps our community and our citizens. We have to have rules, just as everyone has to have them in their own workplace and in their own home. I do think this proposal addresses that balance with a reasonable and common sense approach. Thank you to the public for your patience as we worked through this and put in the countless hours of work to get where we are today. I would like to make clear, I want this board to take action tonight. The taxpayers are not demanding action in the next year, the next months, or even in the next weeks. They want action tonight, and I hope we can provide them with that. Thank you. With that, we're going to go into public comments. You may address the board. There will be no back and forth discussions. There will be no communications from the board to you. Kevin Cook, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and please speak into the microphone. Is that on, Cassandra?
Is it on now? There we go.
My name is Kevin Cook, and I was encouraged by fellow citizens.
Address, please.
22605 83rd Street.
Thank you.
I was encouraged by fellow citizens and legal experts to come and take advantage of my 3 minutes. So here we go. We moved our family to Salem in 2003 to raise our kids in the country and let them have all the animals they wanted. When we did that with horses, alpacas, goats, chickens, you name it. 4-H and county fairs were regular parts of our life. We bought our farm north of Montgomery Lake because it had a sturdy barn and over 20 acres of fields, wetlands, and woods. It's been a wildlife paradise for my kids growing up, and we've tried to be good stewards of that land. Then this spring, we were notified by the property officer that we were in violation of certain codes. Since it was initiated by a neighbor complaint, we obtained a copy of that complaint. The complaint listed only 4 items, and half were not even true, including multiple buildings in disrepair and junk vehicles. They also cited a bus that can be seen from the road. Our barn did need a new roof, but not that anyone could notice from the road. And we were in the process of hiring a contractor already. In April, we spent $13,000 on a new metal roof. When we shared this with the village officials, we were told that we weren't being targeted for our buildings, but instead, too many trailers and recreational vehicles. I thought that was an odd response to a citizen who just invested $13,000 in, property improvements that will preserve this barn for a long time. Regarding junk vehicles, we didn't have anything that could remotely be considered junk. Not a single rusted clunker anywhere. My son was restoring an Airstream and another small camper that were both in good shape. We have a livestock trailer because we've had livestock for 2 decades. And most of our land is zoned ag, so we thought we were okay. Regarding the school bus, it's a short school bus. another one of my son's projects. He spent a couple years turning it into a really cool camper. But in the past few months, he sold the Airstream for a $1,500 loss. And last month, in frustration about the constant harassment, he got rid of the bus he'd worked so hard on.
30 seconds.
And still the notices come. So the original neighbor complaint was full of lies, but we responded the best we could and did 10 times more. And honestly, it tore up our family a bit. Lots of arguing. After 21 years of taking care of our conservation land and paying $7,000 a year in taxes, this has gone beyond an insult to feeling more like an abuse of good citizens. And this sense of targeted harassment has become clear as I talk to more neighbors and citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Could everyone please turn their cell phones on silent? I was going to call you last, but if you want to go next.
I'll come last.
All right. How about Adam Miller? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name's Adam Miller. We live at 11510 Antioch Road in Trever. We moved out here about just under 3 years ago for a better life for our family. We spent all our money to buy a nice piece of property. Like I said, we have 24 acres of agricultural property. I get a violation in the mail with a 10-day notice of a container that's behind my garage and some scrap metal, which all was there when we moved in. We're trying to better the property. We want to farm it. We want to eventually do everything on our own. I called John Carrier to talk about this violation because it made no sense to me per the zoning area. And I couldn't get a hold of him. The secretary told me that he wasn't in and didn't know when he was going to be in because he is a firefighter also on the side, which why can't we get a hold of him? He finally did call me back eventually. We did talk. We didn't talk for long. I asked for an extension because I work out of town. He said he'd give me a 30-day extension. I got a 60-day extension in the mail, which is great. But in the conversation, he basically told me that the industrial parks are moving this way and it's not a farming community anymore, which I don't agree with and don't appreciate. And I'm several people here probably don't agree with that either. Some of the comments he makes to other people is ridiculous. I think that something should be done about it. And I was told that several other people have complaints on this gentleman. We just want to have a good community. We want to help. We don't want the fines to people. We want to go out there. If somebody's grass is tall, I'll go cut it. That's what we want as a community. We don't need all these rules and zoning thrown in our face and then threatened with a letter saying a sheriff's going to come serve you. Like that's just wrong. I know it's part of it. It has to be done. But some of these people have been in this community for 60, 70 years and they're getting messed with. Why? I get people don't like looking at other people's junk, but I was raised on one man's junk's another man's treasure. So what you may think is junk may not be junk to me. And let people live their life. Like if we can go help them clean it up, let's go help them. Let's not threaten them. Let's not tell them one thing and then when you come back, tell them another thing. So there's a lot of back and forth is what I'm getting at too. And we need help from you guys
30
to fix
seconds.
this. Obviously people showed up tonight, which is awesome. And we need to continue this, but everybody's asking for help to make this place better. I don't need letters like this when I'm out of town working, trying to feed my family. I stay up at night worried about a container that's been there since 57. I moved it around the back of the garage so I could get a little bit more room. And now since it's been there since 1957, I believe. If you go on Google Earth, you can see it. All the steel's been back there. We're trying.
Time is up.
We don't have the money. Thank you.
Gabriella, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Gabriella Smola. I live at 22605 83rd Street in Salem. Thanks for hearing me. I've lived in Salem for 23 years. The property we live on is 26 plus acres of woods, wetlands, and pasture. I have actively maintained livestock and agricultural businesses on the property since we have resided here. In March of 2024, a neighbor who has no sight on my house, meaning she lives 2 doors down, filed a complaint. Her complaint is about multiple structures and disrepair, debris, junk vehicles, and the school bus. This has turned my life upside down. The property maintenance officer does not acknowledge any distinction between agricultural or residential ordinances, and John Carrier has told me to sell my property. I am this month finishing paying off the new roof on my house, which was replaced 3 years ago. And this summer we replaced our barn roof, which was leaking but not visible from the road. We have worked endlessly since March to satisfy the property maintenance officer and the village of Salem Lakes to no resolution or acknowledgement to anything we have attempted to remedy. We are being abused and harassed. We are already a struggling family that will never be fully whole. My daughter was killed in a car accident, June 24th, 2009. The driver of the car was driving drunk. I have tried to do the best as I can as a mother and homeowner, and it's not been easy. I work extremely hard to keep it all together, including working intense farmers markets to pay the property taxes. My 12-year-old has been working alongside us since she was 5, and my 19-year-old since she was 10. My eldest son is in the Marines, and my younger son helps as much as he can. What I don't think the village of Salem Lakes understands is the emotional and psychological impact this property maintenance has had on all of my family members and many other innocent citizens of Salem Lakes. My young girls, ages 12 and 19, are traumatized. I don't even feel like it's safe to leave them there alone if I go run errands. Yeah, maybe this isn't Storybook Farm, but that's what I've worked the last 23 years to have a home. I have cried myself to sleep many nights over this. In all this turmoil affecting many families, not only my own, there has never been suggested resources for help. I suggest that we start thinking of the property ordinances in a positive light and instead of think of it as a property enhancement. We need to defund the current system and start to work towards building community
30
amongst the
seconds.
citizens of Salem Lakes. What if this money had actually gone to the people and the properties to fix problems and beautify these said properties? I know in my case, I have a huge problem with invasive species and fencing, and it is beyond my resources to fix this by myself. I would welcome help, as I am sure what others that are in need would. Instead of living in fear of losing my home, I would welcome community and a sense of belonging to something bigger and better. I need my current complaint closed.
Time.
And currently the
Thank you.
enforcement is extremely subjective. What John Carrier does is he just, okay.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Attorney McTurnan. Please state your name and address for the record.
Michael McTurnan, 6633 Green Bay Road, Kenosha, Wisconsin. I hear the plights of your property owners, and I guess it comes back to, I understand government is not quick to make fixes, but you understand it's of the people, by the people, and for the people, not for Mr. Carrier and not for Ms. Hiller. I think you have to understand, and I've made this representation, and when I represent Chad Cantwell and also Steve Dunn, and I beg this board, and I beg Ms. Hiller, and I beg Ms. Carrier, issue the citations to my clients. I want them issued so I can bring this matter to a circuit court judge and establish how wrong you are. General ordinances were adopted for this community back in the 1960s when the county adopted shoreland. Prior to that, there was no zoning. The county took over zoning in the 1990s. And then, as we know, the village didn't adopt their ordinances till 2017. You can't sit here and hammer these clients for non-conforming matters if their properties were in existence and were used prior to the adoption of these ordinances. It's illegal and oppressive. And that's the problem I have. My clients are being abused. Carlton and Deborah Handicott panned to me a 30-day notice from Mr. Carrier, claiming that things that they have been on their property, like Mr. Cantwell has property since the 1850s. Mr. Handicott's been there since the 1950s. He doesn't have to remove his items. He doesn't have to stop using his property. The law protects him. And I would hope that you understand how that works. And I'll hand out the case that Mr. Bitar, the village's attorney, knows all well. The Supreme Court has issued orders on this. You cannot allow these property owners to be abused like this. It's oppressive and illegal. The village of Slinger took one of their clients to court, Polk Properties. Mr. Bitar's partner argued the case at the Supreme Court. It's crystal clear what they ruled. The municipality can adopt an ordinance, cannot, and say your non-conforming use needs to stop. And we're going to ticket you and shut you down. The Supreme Court came down harshly and said, that's not the law. That's not allowed. So I beg you, are you going to listen to and do what you want for the people
30
that have been here for
seconds.
generations? Or are you going to sit here and allow your administrator to allow your staff to violate the law? If the board can't do anything to affect the employee who's violating the law, then the board needs to do something about the administrator who's allowing the employee to violate the law. I welcome you to bring the citations. Please, Mr. Handicott, I'm his lawyer, like Mr. Dunn and Mr. Cantwell. Bring the
Time is up.
citations. I'm happy to defend them, and I'll defend them all the way to the Supreme Court.
Thank you.
Letters from all of Mr. Hannicott's neighbors who have a problem with their property, and the seminal case in Wisconsin that talks about non-conforming uses and how it is not, can't be used as a tool to attack property.
Okay, we're going to go on to number 8, the Administrator's Office. Discussion and possible action on the following items. 8.1, Resolution 2024.10-110, a resolution adopting the Kenosha County Hazard Mitigation Plan Update 2023 through 2028.
Good evening, board members. My name is Sergeant Chris Hanna. I'm the County Emergency Management Director for Kenosha County. Thank you for having this resolution in front of you. This resolution is for the adoption of the Kenosha County Hazard Mitigation Plan, which you all should have received a link to the copy. And your village administrator, Cassandra Hiller, has a paper copy in her office on this. This plan does not obligate any new spending. It is asking for you to adopt this plan. FEMA requires this plan if you are going to take any FEMA mitigation grant money from FEMA. This plan would have to be adopted before you take that money. And in certain disasters, you would have to have this plan adopted also. This came before the board in 2017. I wasn't in this position in 2017. I'm 90% sure that this was adopted back in 2017 under the village of Salem, or the town of Salem, excuse me. Are there any questions that I can entertain?
Pete, you have to speak into. Thank you.
So this is strictly procedural, this resolution?
This is asking, the resolution is to adopt the plan. The plan does have recommendations and guidance, but there is nothing mandatory that you have to do. And it covers natural disasters.
So Mr. Hanna, was there any, I see here that the Kemper Center shoreline application was submitted in February of this year for 27 million. Was there any funds requested from Kenosha County with regards to the buyout along the Fox River?
That I do not have any knowledge of.
But wouldn't that fall under this hazard mitigation planning?
The plan covers it. The grant program for the lakeshore erosion along Lake Michigan was handled by the Public Works Department in Kenosha County.
Can you also help me understand what it means when it says the planning grant timelines does not necessarily line up with county update cycle due to available funding from FEMA. And our planning grant started in July of 21 and ended in May of 22.
Yes, our grants, this current plan runs from 2023 to 2028. It's on a 5-year cycle. And our previous one was for the last 5 years. It ended in 2022. The grants are available only when FEMA makes the funding available for the grants to develop and to continue these plans. That came about in 2021. We applied for that grant and were awarded that grant from 2021 through 2024.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I make a motion to approve resolution 2024.10-110, a resolution adopting the Kenosha County Hazard Mitigation Plan Update 2023 through 2028.
Second.
Second by trustee Hopkins. Mr. Polly,
Yes.
Mr. Faber,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Gant,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Barheit,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Motion carries unanimous. Thank
Thank
you. 8.2, recommendation to contract with Terry and Nudo to provide the Village of Salem Lakes with municipal prosecution services. I understand Mr. Nudo is here if you want to. Mr. Terry.
Mr. Terry is here
Sorry,
this evening.
I got
So-
that wrong. I know. I was just introduced to you. Sorry. about
So
that.
I'll just quickly introduce this item. As you know, we have used the Schulze firm for many, many, many years. And this year the board had requested that we go out for a request for proposal to see if there were other interested parties. The village advertised for almost 3 months. We received 2 applicants. We also direct solicited and posted the information. The 2 applicants we received were Mr. Terry and Nudo. And then also we received an application from Rich Schulze's firm. The individual from Rich Schulze's firm that applied no longer works for Rich's firm. So therefore you had 1 responsive applicant to the proposal. Myself and the judge and John Carrier did conduct the interview last week to ensure that they were qualified. Also, we sought input from others that are familiar with the services that they provide and did some reference checks. They will provide services for not only your code enforcement, but also reviewing citations and police reports in preparation for court, time spent in court, conducting pretrial conferences, judicial conferences and trials, things that have to do with juveniles as necessary, tickets as necessary. It is not just code enforcement. I think that's important for the public to know that this is not just code enforcement. This is everything you need a municipal prosecutor for the rest of our business too. In negotiation for services, they did agree to match the $160 per hour that we currently and have been paying for many years for Rich Schulze's firm. So there will be no increase in cost. It will be the same status quo. If you have any questions, he is here this evening. You can ask questions. That is all I have to say on this. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Terry. Sorry for
Yeah, Todd Terry.
insulting you,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Nudo.
No, it was
Um,
cheek, certainly.
yeah.
Happy to answer any questions. It
Thank
sounds like you guys probably have some heavy lifting to do tonight, but real quick, our firm's been doing municipal prosecution work for about 18 years now. It's totally aside from what we normally do, and that's normally civil litigation, a lot of real estate and real estate litigation. So it's kind of a niche that we've developed. Code enforcement, obviously big on tonight's agenda. Have dealt with code enforcement issues extensively. I would tell you, I've been fortunate in the municipalities that I prosecuted for. It's usually very incremental, where it either starts with the police department or generally the code enforcement officer, and then elevates up. And the whole goal all the time, with rare exception, has been compliance there, not excessive fees, daily fines. That said, there have been cases where it gets to that. That's just a real small caveat, probably topical to tonight's agenda, but happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
What other communities do you do that for?
Prosecute for the town of Wheatland, town of Burlington, village of Waterford, and Twin Lakes, Village Twin Lakes. And have dealt with, just on the code enforcement issue, a lot of right to farming stuff, a lot of ag issues, have done a fair amount of code enforcement out in Walworth County as well for a couple of municipalities.
Any other questions? No? Cassandra? How quickly can we vacate our agreement with Schulze?
Schulze requires a 30-day notice. So if the board would like to move forward with Terry and Nudo sooner, I just have to provide a 30-day notice.
I would like to make a motion to contract with Terry Ann Nudo to provide the Village of Salem Lakes with municipal prosecution services effective November 1st. So we will have about a week overlap, which should help with the transition from Schulze's firm to yours.
So moved.
We have a second by trustee Polly. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to meet you. 8.3, creation of events committee.
This is an item that I was asked to bring forward just for a discussion and hopefully direction. There has been desire to create an events committee for quite a while now. Our Parks Commission has done the majority of our events planning for our community, including our most recent Community Days event. Community Days and any other community event that you choose to hold takes a tremendous amount of planning. There is the desire to separate the parks and the events from each other so that there is the ability for Parks Commission to focus on Parks Commission items and the Events Committee to focus on events. When I brought this to the Parks Commission, just to make sure that they were okay with it, because they do the majority of the work, you'd hate to shoot them in the foot, right? So to speak, when they have done all of this in the past. They welcome this change and they would love it to be a subcommittee of the Parks Commission. I recommend that it be a subcommittee of the Parks Commission. I don't think you need a full separate committee. A subcommittee would be sufficient. I would recommend it be 7 members, with 2 of those members being from the Parks Commission, but then the rest of them being somebody else. So I would recommend that you would seek applications from the public to serve on this events committee. The reason I would like 2 people from the Parks Commission is that you do have 2 very, very active members of that Parks Commission that have a ton of institutional and background knowledge on how to plan those events. And they're very vested and invested in that process, and they would love to continue to participate. There are others on the Parks Commission that would also like to continue participating, but I don't want you to have a quorum of that committee. That's not appropriate. So you should not have a quorum of that committee participating. You should have a small number of them, and then bring in additional individuals from the public that would be interested and maybe have a skill set in that and a desire to help move our community forward. If the board is interested in forming this this events committee, I will take direction this evening to draft a more formalized document and have that for you at the next meeting. But I was seeking actual basic feedback on, is 7 okay? Is it a subcommittee okay? And is 2 from the Parks Commission okay? And is there anything else you'd like to see before I spend a ton of time drafting this? And it shouldn't take a ton of time, but anytime.
Yes. So we've talked about this. I'm on board with all of those items. One thing that we do need to decide is if this will be a paid committee. I am inclined to say no. And also I want to, one of the things that they can concentrate. So you all know that we did community days. This was the first year. It was a fantastic turnout. It was only for 6 hours, I believe. We would like to grow that. And if you all noticed in our budget, we had $11,000 budgeted for that. I would like to see this events committee find sponsors so that it is no cost to the Village of Salem Lakes at all. And the Parks Commission cannot concentrate and do things like that. So I would be in favor of a 7-person committee, non-paid, as a subcommittee of the Parks Commission. And I'm not sure about budget funding for events. We would have to discuss, I guess we would have to look at what we currently have and what we do. But again, it would be my hope that they could get enough sponsors to not have to have a budget.
Typically in other communities, you have a chamber of commerce or other entity that would do this. We don't have that here right now. Maybe in the future that'll form in Salem Lakes or in the greater area that we could utilize. But that's why this would be a recommendation. I would not recommend giving them any additional budget this year. They should live within the money that you have in your recommended proposed budget for 2025. And I would encourage them to work hard on finding donations and sponsors.
What does everybody else think?
I agree. The last turnout was a really good turnout. And I think you know, the citizens of the village of Salem Lakes need more of that. So I think it was a good time.
Yeah.
Everybody together.
Yeah, it was a really good day for our community. It was nice to see that in our community. And I think that one of the things that we as a board would like to do is to bring life to this community and fun, something that we haven't had. So I think that this would be a great addition. Yes.
Concur.
Okay, I don't think, do we need to take a vote on this one, Ramsey? Or do we just give direction to create the
I think that
all right.
I make a motion to create the events committee. I'll second it.
Hopkins in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 8.4, purchase of office furniture for the deputy treasurer's workspace, administrator's office, and the central workspace in Village Hall from National Business Furniture in the amount of $17,571.21.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to table this, as this is not the time. We're working through a budget. We're already showing a deficit, and I would just as soon put this off.
And I notice on our new budget, we have $11,000 planned for new furniture, but I do have some comments with regard to this.
So
There's $916.03 worth of taxes on here. We're
we should
tax
be
exempt.
tax exempted,
So
correct?
that would make this amount $16,655.
So before we table this, I would just like to give Cassandra the opportunity to explain this first. And where the funding would come from, and then I don't have a problem with tabling it if that's what we want to do.
Okay, so we have a mismatch of furniture that has been accumulated over the years. The goal was to create the central workspace. We currently have 3 employees working out of. One of the desks is woefully inadequate, and you can't actually even turn and put your legs under it. You can't fit. You don't fit. So also that desk is used for your HR coordinator who deals with confidential personnel information. They have to put information in boxes every day and take it to a locked room because they don't have enough locking drawers or spaces or cubbies or anything to put things in. You can't leave confidential information out. And that's the same for any staff member, like confidential information. We have a cleaner that comes in. You can't leave things out that have social security numbers or other information on it. You have to put it away. To be able to fit at your work desk is really important. It's not comfortable to not fit at your work desk. There are also only 3 desks in that space right now. We do need a 4th desk in that space. So the goal was to add the 4th desk in that space. We were going to then take and repurpose 2 of those desks, Brad and John's desk, and give those to the judge and the municipal court clerk. Their desks, that desk the municipal court clerk sits at is the same as the one Shannon sits at, where you can't actually use half your desk. You can't fit under it. It's not possible. And so we were going to just replace that desk and repurpose furniture in there. So not getting rid of it, just repurposing it. My desk, I have to take a sanding paper to it because it snags my clothes Maybe that's not important to anybody else, but I don't want to go buy new clothes all the time and it is rough. The edges are all eaten up and beat up. And so I have to file it to stop ruining my clothes. My center drawer is collapsing. I probably could try to find a way to fix it temporarily, but this is the kind of furniture we have. We had budgeted in our budget for $11,000 for next year to do 2 desks. But because we're already over budget for next year and we found available funds this year, we could remove that from next year's budget and put it into this year's budget instead and use available remaining funds. If we don't add a 4th desk to that workspace, I will have to find a desk from somewhere else to add for that space. So that's fine. I can find another one. There's probably somewhere someone has one in the basement here maybe or somewhere else. But that's just that's what we're working with. We wanted locking drawers, locking cubbies so you can put confidential stuff away. I'd like a desk that doesn't ruin my clothes and a drawer that's not going to collapse. That's what it is. It's not asking for frills or perks or anything fun and fancy. It's basic. It's basic function. It's ergonomic workspaces that work and aren't not functional. You know, if we can't have it, that's fine. I'll keep filing my desk and I will find a way to nail or staple my drawer so it doesn't fall out. I'd be happy to show any one of you that too. So I'm not making things up. I'd walk you around anyone's desks to show you them. I'm not saying 2 of our desks are bad. They're not in fact bad. They were going to be repurposed to replace ones that aren't great. So that's that. And you can say no. I'm not saying you have to say yes, of course. You are free board to make decisions, but that's the justification for it. The funds would come out of building maintenance and miscellaneous contingencies. So there is money available that is not currently spoken for any other needs.
Okay.
I would like to second Bill Hopkins' motion to table this for now.
Okay, so we have a first by Mr. Hopkins, a second by Mr. Young to table. Mr. Polly,
Yes, table.
Mr. Faber,
Yes, table.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Gant, Mr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Borheit.
Yes.
I'm a yes.
I'd like to see, when they do come back with a bid here with the sales tax missing on or the one that was still on there, it's
Sure.
we're tax exempt.
That's easy to have removed. And we would ask for that to be removed. We wouldn't pay that because we are tax exempt. So I apologize for missing that.
All right, we'll move on to planning and zoning. Number 9, discussion and possible action on the following items. 9.1, Hansen's conditional use for outdoor dining.
So this is Andy Bueller, Director of Planning and Development, contracted for planning services for the village. You have before you a request for a conditional use permit for the outdoor dining and for Hansen's Ice Cream. They're looking at moving from their current location to their residence. They have the proper zoning. This is just a conditional use permit for the ability to have outdoor activities. In this case, it's for outdoor dining or consuming ice cream. Originally, I think they were proposing a deck. They're thinking of a patio. How they do it is really not kosher to what's it being requested. Is just the ability to be able to have serving and eating outside. The Plan Commission did review this. It did go before them and it was passed unanimously.
Do they have sufficient parking for this?
So they have a site plan review that will come along with this as they're proposing to be able to move in with that. And what has been submitted, they are meeting the requirements of the ordinance.
Based on these comments and the fact that our planning commission voted 7-0 to approve it, I'll move to approve it.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we have a first by trustee Faber, second by trustee Young. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. 9.2, resolution 2024.10-111, a resolution adopting the code enforcement procedure within the village of Salem Lakes.
I'm not sure if you wanted me to lead this one or you. read it?
I can lead this, sure,
Thank you.
certainly. If you want to just hold on one second. Okay, so as I stated in my speech, there is a need to come up with a policy, and if I'm not mistaken, we didn't actually have a policy. Is that correct?
Procedures that we've been following since 2017.
But no policy, really.
I don't-
Yeah.
Not something this specific and this
Okay.
direct. This
Okay.
formalizes everything, which
Yeah.
is really helpful.
Right. So, as I stated, Pete and I worked on a rough draft. We did get a revised version back from the attorney. I worked with staff and Ramsey. We came up with some revisions. Those revisions, draft 2, was put on the portal for you all to see this weekend. I did not get to see it as I was very busy, and I didn't get to see it until Saturday, early afternoon-ish. When I read it, I disagreed with many things in there. So while I know some of you are not happy that you are seeing this for the first time at this meeting, I apologize for that, but I worked all Saturday night and all day yesterday on this, and probably 3 hours today on this. I have put in a lot of thought and a lot of time. While some of you may want to table this, I am politely asking this board not to do that. There is no reason that you cannot read through this and we cannot talk through this tonight. You have a red line version here, which shows you the second draft and the changes I made. And then you have my final version, which is here, which you all have access to if you would like to get a copy.
That's the same. as the-
That is the red line version, which is actually purple lined on there, but that was version 2. So you can see exactly what I didn't like and what I changed. This, you should have a final copy there, everyone. So you can see.
Nobody can find it, so that's what I'm asking.
We only have red lines.
We only have red line.
Oh,
Public, sorry.
could we, are there
Is it
enough
the
over
same
there?
as this?
No.
Oh.
Well, it is, but that's going to be really difficult for you to understand if you can't see it as a finished version.
I gave the board members the copy of the red line so you could see what the differences were
Those three.
between what
Here.
you saw
I will
online
print
over the
some.
weekend.
I will print some right
and the
now.
Final. I can go make more photocopies. Don't worry
Yeah,
about it.
could you?
I'll go.
Because I
get 'em.
think that would be helpful to everyone because the red line is quite extensive on the changes. So it's hard to envision what that would look like. Yeah. Okay. So I think what we can do is take a 10-minute recess to give the board a chance to read through this and assemble their thoughts. Do I need to vote on that to take a recess, Ramsey? I don't know what the rule is. I've never done that. Okay, we're gonna take a recess. We'll come back at what time is it? 7:27. So at 7:40.
Can speed this up. Can you just say what the difference is between, see what the difference is between the red line?
We're going to go over this. So Ramsey, I would like some guidance from you on how we should approach this.
Well, the policy that was put before you was, as you had indicated, a draft that you and, Peter had begun working on, and I took that with a policy that seemed to be, on your website. I found it and it made sense. And that's, what you have in front of you. As with any kind of document, there's always back and forth and wordsmithing. And that's what Rita and I and staff had done over the last several days. But the policy here in broad strokes contains the following features. It has first a purpose section, and I think many in the audience tonight have copies of this. And explains that the village has many codes and that code enforcement is the responsibility by everyone in the community. And that the purpose of the policy is to provide guidance. Then has an expression of policy, that's the village's policy to accept and investigate written complaints. And then it goes on to explain the procedural aspects of code enforcement, beginning with a complaint. And many of the questions and concerns that I know have been coming to the board have really been about who is the complainant, who can file complaints, what can they file complaints about, can complaints be amended once an inspector starts to look at or verify that there is in fact a code violation. All of that really went to who and the scope of the complaint, and all of that is now contained in the section called filing a complaint form and the complainant. For instance, at paragraph 7, complaints may also be made by a village board trustee or county supervisor. Those type of complaints are going to be treated the same. The earlier paragraph 6, and that's the one I was looking for, references that complaints can only be made by residents, property owners, business owners, and must be within 750 feet of the property within the alleged violation. I'm not sitting in my office making policy calls. That's for you guys. But some of the issues and concerns that were flowing to me from Peter and Rita were to try to have this radius band of 750 feet. That's fine. My job is simply, if that's the policy preference of the board, my job is to pound that into your policy. And so that's what we've done. The balance of this goes on to the complaint investigation and response process, including the initial, they use the word investigation, but it's not like they're coming into your home. The idea is to go and do a site inspection from the road or the like. You know, is there in fact a code violation or not? If it's unsubstantiated, it's over. If it's substantiated, it then goes to the processes that will follow, that there'll be issuance of a notice of violation, with timeframes in which to address that, opportunities to come back before the board to ask for additional time. There was a request that the policy has some kind of ability for monthly review by the village board. That is now in here under the section called monthly report. So I think you can read for yourself, and hopefully most of it is self-explanatory about the complainant process and the procedures. This document is basically warehousing everything, as I understood it, that you had been doing, but it's now in one document.
Well, and it addresses some of the other items such
Correct.
as
Correct.
Investigations can only be done on what is listed on the complaint, nothing more, unless it is a safety issue in which the fire chief has jurisdiction over that. It also, you can only file a complaint if you are a resident, property owner, or business owner within the village of Salem Lakes. We are not going to be accepting complaints from those not in our community any longer. And those that are filing complaints must be within 750 feet of the property that they are filing on. The only way to get around that is that, again, as Ramsey said, a trustee or county supervisor is not limited to that 750 feet. However, they are to fill out the complaint form and sign it, date it, just like everyone else. In the past, we have not had that in writing.
Madam President, can I jump in here for a second? I think this issue is large enough that I'd like to make a motion that agenda item 9.2 be open to public hearing for that item in itself only, and move to see if there's anyone willing to second that. And what that would do would be to give the public an opportunity to just for this item to come up to the podium and speak. And if I've got my procedure correct, I think I can ask for that motion. Let me know.
Well, I'm kind of wondering about whether it was properly noticed. It's not noticed as a hearing. You did have public input through your public comments in section 6. If the concern, and I don't want to be presumptuous, but I didn't know if you want me to read all this word for word and some of the core highlights in here. But as I understand it, most of these ideas flowing from you, Mr. Poley, and Rita and others have all been vetted through and what you've heard from the community. And some of the concerns you heard earlier are now addressed in this policy. So the board is certainly welcome to discuss it. If they want me to walk through the components of it, point by point, I'm willing to do so, but I don't think you have it noticed as a public hearing.
Okay.
Dennis, can you turn your microphone on, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I have one comment, question or suggestion for under number 2 of the complaint investigation and response process. It's where it says the fire chief determines they pose a safety risk to life and property. I also think health would be important, that word health, to work it in there. And here's the reason why. We did have a number of years ago, a person that had the soffits on their house were in bad shape, and raccoons were living up in his attic. And there was quite a lot of feces and things that were there. And I don't know if the fire chief would be the one to determine that, or would be the public health out of Kenosha. Maybe the fire chief would contact that person to say, I think there's a health problem here.
We actually had that twice, Dennis, in the last 3 years, one on Highway 83 and one over in Rock Lake, off of Rock Lake Road. If you remember correctly, it took an arm and a leg to get that couple out of the house. They actually had no running water. She was using rainwater buckets.
And we had an incident where they had no bathroom facilities. They were using a 5-gallon pail, but
So Chief, ball's in your court.
Well, I guess Ramsey as well. Do you think that it should say they pose a safety risk to health, life, or property, or is that?
Well, we can certainly insert the words, yeah.
Okay, and then,
Health, it can read life, health, or property.
all right, and Chief?
But in terms of raccoons, and I will leave that to the chief.
In regard to safety and health concerns, our area of expertise does not necessarily get into raccoons unless, of course, they're presenting a life safety hazard. However, what we do encounter in times like this is significant hoarder concerns as well, as it poses safety concerns for both the occupants of the home as well as us as responders and how we interact with that particular scenario. It's not uncommon, unfortunately, in today's society where you'll find a home with, let's say, deer paths for walkways, people who have not been out of the home in years in some cases, and people who are in need who don't ask for it, don't get the help, and present concerns and challenges for us as responders. So it's appropriate for us to have a voice in the process, in particular as it relates to their safety, the safety of the community, and the responders. So we're in favor of that idea.
If I may, on line item 9 of that same piece, we do talk about danger to health, safety, and welfare. So if we can incorporate something similar.
And number 2, yeah, that would be, that's all I'm asking.
All right, Dennis, I'm going to ask you to make a motion, and we're going to ask for a second. to add that? That was what I said in the beginning. I was going to ask for a motion, and is that okay? Motion, a second, and a vote to make changes, or?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, your motion, if that's the only change, you can make a motion to approve subject to that. I have one more.
Or should we go through all of the changes and then,
Depends.
I
if
don't
the
know.
Board is, if you feel like you've reviewed it and understand and ready to move to vote, then you can move to vote.
I think there's going to be maybe a few more items. We should probably just continue through the list and then compile
okay,
and then move.
sure.
I think it's semantics, but I want to make sure that the verbiage is correct across the document. We talk about property maintenance code. I'm not aware of any specific property maintenance codes, but later on you talk about village codes. And I think that's what you're referring to here. I think you do have, so the village, of course, has many codes, the Code of Ordinances. And you have, I think in section 2, your general legislation ordinances, which cover everything from nuisances all the way through zoning. And I believe within that series of chapters, and there's probably 15 of them, I think one of your chapters is on property maintenance. I'm trying to pull it up now. Okay. That refers to the grass and everything else, correct? Whether the grass is in the property maintenance or some other chapter. Yeah. It's in one of those. And for instance, your vehicle abandonment, which I know is referenced in here as an example, that's in its own unique chapter governing automobiles and vehicles.
Okay.
Hey, Bill?
In a vehicle abandonment, that's as much as they get that ticket for if you didn't pay for your sticker on time.
Well, that's our ordinance. We can't change our ordinance today.
All right, another one is, I think there should be on there something, and I've experienced with this. If you're in litigation over this, they shouldn't be rewriting more fines while you're in litigation.
Yeah, and I mean, that would be subject to however the complaint and the prosecution is being handled in the court, as well as what arrangements might be agreed upon between the defendant and the prosecutor in the court. That's all the court processes. So for instance, the parties can agree to stay enforcement. They can agree to stay fines and forfeitures. But as a matter of law, both under statutes and your code, fines and forfeitures always continue for every day of a violation, but that's up to the court and the judge to ultimately decide. This policy is not, just so everyone is clear, this policy, and tonight, you're not rewriting your zoning code of ordinance. In fact, when I walked in here, that's one of your visions. If the community wants to eliminate its zoning altogether, fine. That's a policy choice. And you want whatever other choices you want to make with respect to your zoning code, including whether fines and forfeitures accumulate every day, that's for another day, and that's a policy decision for another day.
So that would be under the policy itself.
That would be under the code itself.
The
This
code.
policy is only speaking very generally to how does the process generally work? Who is the complainant, who can make complaints, as Madam President.
And I get it's in the later part where you start refining and stuff. In the very end there.
Well, I think the very end, says that the process eventually reaches its finish line in municipal court. If matters are unresolved, the whole point of this was to have a process so everyone understood what the process is. So this is explain who can be the complainant, issuance of the initial warnings, the follow-ups, the opportunities for extensions to cure the problem, to cure the violation, and then if things are not resolved, how it then lands in municipal court. But this doesn't speak further to what actually happens in municipal court. That's for municipal court, subject to the statute and code.
I have experience in this part, and before it gets into the municipal park, it gets delayed. And meanwhile, they'll write you another citation while you're dealing with it in court.
We're in this particular lineup. Would that best fit your concern for review and potential edit? I'm asking him, you know, his concerns, what line item should we be looking at? Or
I
potentially,
think it's a line item. I think it's just have to be another one. And this is 12 months, because believe it or not, this stuff can take years. Easily. And then find the property in violation. And then it says, I think maybe this ain't the right spot. But anyhow, if you're in litigation for it, it should stop till after litigation is over instead of rewriting you a ticket. Right? To write you another ticket or another citation. It's not a ticket till a police officer gets you.
Yeah, so I think that this has been, and we can certainly add features if you like. I'm not saying you can't add features, but let's walk, I mean, maybe we do need to walk through this because the earlier, when it talks about who's a complaint, or who can file a complainant, it indicates that additional complaints may not be tacked on.
which item are you on, Ramsey?
Number 1 on the first page. Okay, Ben.
Number 1 under complaint investigation and response process, is that where we're discussing at the moment?
Yeah, so if you go to the section called complaint investigation and response process, paragraph 1. All properly made complaints that allege violation shall be considered and investigated by the village for validity and resolution, and when investigated, shall be limited only to the items and issues listed on the complaint. Then provides that next paragraph, additional violations may only be added if it's determined by the village fire chief that they pose a safety risk to life or property. Which, as mentioned earlier, you'd like it changed to life, health, or property. The complaint, next paragraph, the complaint is then investigated by the property maintenance officer. First step involves an inspection to verify a violation exists. That inspection will take place within 30 days. Next, any violations that are observed are photo documented. That photography is taking place from the street or other, public grounds. The use of drones, such aerial photography is not allowed. Next paragraph, matters not found to be substantiated will be dismissed without further action. Next paragraph, if a complaint is substantiated, property maintenance notice is issued in the form of a letter, and that's beginning the notice period. Notice will give the time frame to abate, fix, or cure the violation, can provide a suggested resolution. All communications will be documented between the village and the property owner. I think in here it indicates that US mail will be used. When the property, and now at paragraph 8, when the initial property maintenance notice expires, a follow-up inspection is performed to check the status of compliance. There's not been full compliance, but there's improvement, and the party is working towards compliance, and extension can be granted. If they're uncooperative and made no efforts to comply, a final notice is issued. Next paragraph, if the responsible party continued to make substantial progress, that's when they can come before the board to ask for further extensions, which can be granted, I think, up to 60 days, unless there is a danger to health, safety, or welfare as determined by the fire chief.
Just that once it's initiated, support is initiated, once you take it forward, you take it to Kenosha County. Should be able to keep writing tickets while it's in litigation.
Can I jump in here and I say, I think I kind of see something going on. I would, if we go by the letter of what's before us tonight, the only way additional items could be added, correct me if I'm wrong, Ramsey, could be added if a separate complaint were to come in from an outside party about the property. Your concern is that not be added by village staff. Is that right?
And for the same, mine is all zoning. For the same thing, can't rewrite the tickets to get it solved in court.
And I think Ramsey's response in regards to once it's in court, it becomes an issue between lawyer and a defendant.
Well, you would think
In the courts. Yeah.
courts.
It's not happening now.
So the one protection exists, so you'd need a second complaint to come in from the public, and your concern is once it's in court and then getting written up.
Well, no, it's not the second claim from the court, from another person. It's from the village.
Okay, if you could speak to that, Ramsey, how would that be?
The village
handled?
coming back. Not another complaint.
So, yeah, I think and I know that you're relying upon your own experience in court. But as Mr. Poley explained, the policy is written so that complaints cannot be expanded. So if someone complains that someone has their junk in the front yard, or their garbage in the front yard and is collecting and accumulating, that is the singular and only violation that can be
And
explored.
that's perfect. I understand that part. It's
Right.
after.
And
It's
the
probably not going
after,
to get to that point now with
but
this.
the after is occurring when you're in court because it's come to the board's attention that the property owner has been either refused to comply or uncooperative, or maybe the parties have a dispute about the interpretation of the code. The village board then elects to allow the matter to be prosecuted, which is in the policy here. The village board says, okay, we'll take the matter to municipal court, or it can go straight to circuit court where there's more remedies available. Once it's in court, it's in court. The parties are free to decide to stay enforcement, or whatever agreement they
won't
might
be able
reach.
to write more citations while you're waiting in court?
More citation couldn't be issued unless, as the example came up, there is entirely new complaints coming in against the property.
So everything that's going on now, it's nullified, or we have to follow that through?
Yeah, well, you'd obviously, once you're in court as a defendant, you're gonna have to follow the process that the court and the judge sets out for your case.
I understand that part.
Yeah.
But what stops them to keep reissuing tickets?
Bill, is line 19 answer it? Line 19.
Okay, this is not a public hearing.
No,
I'm
I'm just
sorry.
saying
So we
it's just
we cannot interact with the public. That's not how the meeting law works. I'm sorry.
I think this is gonna, I think this is gonna solve 90% of our troubles. And I'll just probably be locked in to what happened before. That's okay. Let's go.
But I think would be, so there might be something coming up later in your concern. But ultimately, maybe we should just start at page 1 and see if anybody has any edits they'd like to do, and then go page 2 and work our way through that
I'm
way.
good with the rest. Like I said, this is very, very well done. I just know from experience what the village is doing now.
Okay.
So I've got oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll approve it.
So on page 1, if you look at them as separate paragraphs, paragraph number 3, I'm curious if it ends with and village administrator, and is a village administrator, I guess from definition aspect, different from village staff, or is village administrator part of village staff? And I'm just, maybe it's procedural, but I'm just wondering if that's an extra set of words that aren't necessary, if we could end it with village board members and village staff. Or is that like a third arm of the law, or how does that work?
I think that was simply put in for no other reason than maybe transparency, I suppose, that staff includes administrator, but you can keep it generic.
Yeah, I guess I just say strike and village administrator, and just after the word members and before the word village, insert the word and. Is my interest. And then filing a complaint, the complaint form and complainant, that heading number 1 along the same spirit. Unsubstantiated complaints such as anonymous phone calls or emails will warrant no action. And it says by the administrator, village board, or staff. And I would say just make it village board or staff.
I think we specifically spelled this out due to the problems in the past. So this makes it explicit.
Okay.
If you want to, that's fine. I think that they are unnecessary changes, quite honestly.
Well, I'm just taking the opportunity to bring up what I think maybe is necessary. So that's fine if you want to leave that. Number 2, under filing complaint and the complaint form and complainant. One concern that has come up and has been brought up a couple different times, once we come up with, as we've heard, is coming a 750-foot radius, is that how do you ensure that the complaint has actually come from somebody who actually lives or owns property within 750 feet of the property in which they are complaining? And I don't know what's legal, so I guess my request is to help for guidance on what's legal, but to some form of way to confirm residency / ownership. And one of the ideas was, I guess, an ID. However, I suppose if somebody lived, for example, outside of our district but owned property within, maybe it could be something as simple as proof of tax payment or utility or something similar to voting. But just trying to come up with some way that somebody I could make an email that says I'm, one of the members of the audience, .net, and send it in and make it seem like I'm that same name of person. So I guess just trying to find, can we come up with something that we can verify that the complaint is from a valid person? Or do we have something that addresses that?
Paragraph 2 indicates that the complaint has to be in writing. And it has to contain the name, telephone number of the complainant. And then you also have the feature that they have to be within 750 feet of the property. So when the village receives such a complaint, they're going to know the identity of the complainant, and they can look to make sure that they are in fact within 750 feet.
Okay.
And that they're a resident, property owner, or business owner.
I think he's asking, how do we verify that?
Well,
Or how could we verify that?
well, staff is going to look at this and follow these policy and procedural steps. So the policy says that your complaint has to have the name and telephone number of a complainant. If it doesn't have that, they're not looking at it. Your policy is no longer going to take anonymous complaints, unsubstantiated complaints, or complaints from people who are on the far reaches of the other side of the village from a property they're complaining about. The policy that you are looking to draft or to address has already said that you have to be within that 750 feet and you have to supply your name.
I guess I'm going with something slightly more nefarious, but I understand your position on that somebody could fake a number of those things. I can give a phone number that's not that would ring back to me, but isn't applicable to the property. So that was one of the concerns, but I'm willing to back down off of that if I'm the only one holding that concern. So I guess, all right, I'll pull that request, and my next segment would take us all the way to under the heading complaint investigation and response process, what is now number 9. We don't currently, and a lot of things we're currently doing, we're trying to fix, but we don't currently have a maximum number of extensions. I'm familiar with a number of cases that have gone past extension number 4. In this particular set of language, it says if the responsible party continues to make substantial progress upon follow-up inspection, a third and final extension may be given. And I don't know that those words are necessary, because I think leaving latitude, you could, let's say, for example, we've heard some cases tonight about things that are decades old. I don't know that 90 days or the equivalent of, say, 120 days may be enough for things that have taken decades to accumulate. So it seems it's a bit confining to have third and final. So I think those maybe a reasonable extensions may be given, some kind of language like that is an interest of mine. And as you drop down 3 more lines, and you get
Can we
down.
stop and talk about that one?
Well, this one is I think it's intertwined with days. So just to for that paragraph, maybe is to bring that together, is that when you go down to, let's see here, as a discretionary extension by the village board pursuant to the following procedure, a property owner may seek an additional extension not to exceed 60 days, again, confining us. So those are the only two spots. And I just wanted, from the spirit of the paragraph, as well as helping people give time for compliance as they're making reasonable progress, it seems to put a cage around or confine us to having to follow a particular procedure. And I think there should be latitude available, especially for cases that are involve more effort to come into compliance.
So for transparency and fairness and process, you want to have some parameters. Whatever the parameters are is your call. You can say that you're going to give 12 extensions. Whatever you want to do as a policy matter, I'll put in here. If you leave it entirely open-ended, then that's where you're going to have a concern over time, whether it's by staff or by the board, that you're not being even-handed. And unless this village already has a 50-year history of always only giving 3 or 4 or 12 extensions, I would encourage you to have some written parameter in here. The whole purpose of this was to have something in writing with some level of fairness and transparency and process. And so it is your call. I am not going to make the policy call whether you're going to have 3 and third and final extension or 12 extension. You can make the policy choice and I will put it in here.
So I guess maybe looking for a little bit of help on your part, if you have some creative language, and not asking you to create policy, but is there any kind of word or sentence we can come up with that leaves for extenuating circumstances, maybe brought before the board for special consideration
Sure.
as needed?
I mean, we can put in a caveat in here to the effect of extenuating circumstances, assuming that you mean that you're okay with third and final, or if it's 4, whatever you want to do. And then we can put in a caveat in here about some kind of extenuating circumstances. I can try to build that language for you. That's fine.
Because at one time they would have to come up to the board to get an extension.
Well-
Way long.
That's actually, if you look at this one, Bill, that's in this one
Yeah.
now, is that they can get
Yeah.
a not to
I
exceed
saw.
60 days extension. So maybe, so some kind of crafting to change that up to make it work for the spirit in which I was trying to convey. I'm not sure what words to use for it, but if you can give us a little hand with that.
Third,
Okay.
just leave it an extension maybe.
Well, I think, also we need to be, as Ramsey said, even-handed, meaning treat everyone the same. So you can't give somebody a special consideration over another one, but I do agree with you on extenuating circumstances. I do.
Yeah, so I'm just looking for a way to
Yeah.
frame that correctly that works for legal concerns as well as fairness and extenuating circumstances.
Everyone else okay with that?
Yeah, I like that idea.
Okay, great.
We had a situation where somebody for health reasons couldn't do it, so he didn't make it fine when you gave him. It's not an extension.
Yeah.
An extension maybe good.
Let me ask a question. When you're reading through this complaint investigation and response process, and the initial letter goes out, how much time are we giving individuals to correct the property? Because it's not stated in here.
That
You talk
depends on
about-
the, I think it depends on the, what it is.
10 days,
Yeah, but-
30 days,
Where does it say that?
used to say it.
It used to say that and it was taken out. So what does it say now, except the third and final not to exceed 60 days?
It's a great
So-
point, Bill. Which also some people have reported receiving 10-day notices, right?
Yes,
And so I'm also a big proponent of no notice should be shorter than 30. And then I've got a question in regards to whatever the time frame of the notice is. Does it start from the date that the letter was crafted? Or does it start, because the reason I say that is 10 days. I mean, heck, I could be dealing with a sick parent or traveling for work, and I get back and I got maybe 24 hours or I've missed my deadline. So 10 days seems really short to me for any kind of response. So I think that along the line of Bill's comment that all notices should start with a minimum of 30 days for.
Would
for
that would that not be in the policy itself other than this? This is the procedure. But is it, would it not be in the regular notification? Yeah, but this is.
So, it's possible that and I have not been asked to go through your code, every chapter, line and verse. It's possible that within your code, you do have some timeframes in which you have to fix or abate or cure an issue. It's possible, but I don't know. But however, to Bill's question and yours, and actually all three of your question, you can put, and the appropriate place would be in paragraph 6, where it says that if a complaint is substantiated, a property maintenance notice is issued in the form of a letter, so forth and so on. The notice shall cite the ordinance at issue and consequences to the party for noncompliance. The notice shall give the time frame to abate, fix, or cure the violation. So that's where we can insert for you something to the effect that the notice shall give the time frame to abate, fix, or cure the violation not less than 30 days, from receipt of the notice, unless the code says otherwise, something like that. But you make the policy choice, whether it's 10 days, 30 days, whether you want to give them 50 days, that's up to you.
I like the end of that. The notice shall give the time frame to abate, fix, or cure the violation, not less than 30 days.
So I guess I'm looking to staff to explain why some would be 10 days. What would be some types of those that would be 10 days?
I think we can get staff to explain that, but at the same time, we talked about people out of town, they don't have time to
I
respond.
understand that, but I would like to hear what some of those items might be.
So typically, and again, I don't know if your code says this, and I'll use the word shot clocks. Okay, once you get the notice, shot clock's on, right? We all know basketball. So sometimes it could be 10 days or less. And whether it's in your code or as a matter of practice, and I certainly know this is what other municipalities do. Sometimes it's 10 days or less for things like garbage. I mean, if garbage is sitting there, do you really want it sitting there for 30 days? And so the notice might say, have this corrected in 10 days or less, thinking even by the time you hit day 5, it's going to be really, really smelly. You're attracting the rodents and the like. But if it's something more, let's say it's a zoning code violation that someone is unlawfully operating a business from their home in a residential district or some kind, landscape, the guy decides to turn his home into a landscaping business and he's got heavy equipment everywhere and piles of gravel and dirt. Maybe then it's 30 days. Because you got to get rid of all that equipment and everything else that might be going on. So again, that's a policy call. I can change this to say not less than 10 days for your, property maintenance violations such as abandoned vehicle and garbage hanging in your driveway, and not less than 30 days for other zoning code kind of violations. Those shot clocks are really, and again, always with the caveat, unless your code says otherwise. But those policy decisions you can make tonight, and I'll put them in here.
So I guess I also would like to be able to see how I feel about that would be, does the clock start on the date that's on the letter?
It could be the date that they receive it. Well, I mean, it can be, if you drop it in US mail, it's going to get to them within 3 days. So we can build in the appropriate language so that people are not playing games either. Oh, I never got that. But we can build in appropriate language to give a little bit of a buffer there.
Yeah, I guess that's my biggest concern, that we find a way to make sure we're fair and giving people time that they might need.
Just to let you know, I'm looking at the ordinances now. There are several ordinances within the property maintenance code that does state the 10 days with the grass and the trees, with the vehicles. It's in our ordinance that they get a 10-day notice. So some of this will require ordinance changes.
Right, and you can make your code changes later on, but for purposes of tonight in your policy, you can do language that will achieve all of these points. And so, there's nothing wrong with the policy saying that you're going to follow your code, such as 10 days where the code so says, in 30 days, and add a caveat so long as they've, received it. The kickoff time, I can build all that language in. I just need the board's guidance and consensus where you want to go on such policy terms.
Well, I can stop yapping. How do the rest of you feel?
I'm in agreement with Pete, the 30-day minimal. I think that gives the homeowner time to fix the issues at hand. You know, if he's out of town, if he has family that's sick or ill, you know, I'm sure there's other circumstances, but I think 30 days.
And hopefully this is gonna cut down on 14 citations or 20 citations.
If you all look at the red line version, number 7 under this, I actually removed. That is where they had that. However, when I read this and I looked up these, it looks like you would get a 10-day notice for hundreds of things, right? And then at the end, it says on the fourth to last, and B, 30 days for all other violations. The reason I had that removed is because I felt that when you look at each one of these ordinances, if I got the letter and or I saw this policy, I would think 10 days for, oh my gosh, there's so much things. So we need to find a good balance so that it's clear, because we do have things in our ordinances that we have, you know, we have timeframes in our ordinances that we have to follow.
That as well, but Ramsey stated we could change that, some of those with policy this evening.
We can't change our ordinances, but we can put something in here. Yes. So I guess if I'm not comfortable with paragraph 7, that wording, but if we can come up with something that is a little bit more simple and easier to understand, I would be all for that.
Now you're talking about paragraph 7 of the.
Red line.
Yeah, the public doesn't have that.
Correct.
But if the village ordinance states 10 days, how can you go anything other than that with what you're talking about policy here?
They'd have to be updated.
Ramsey, clarification on your statement?
Yeah, so that proposal on 7 simply tried to track what your code by example had offered. That there was 10 days in some of those code sections. And then otherwise 30 days, but we can simplify the whole process by saying the notice shall give the time frame to abate, fix, or cure the violation not less than 30 days from receipt, unless the code says otherwise. And so that leaves the code
There you
free,
go.
where the code says 10 days, and it leaves you free, whether it's next month or 6 months late from now after committee review, whether you want to change any of your codes. So that accomplishes it.
Okay. I think
And
that's
make sure we
accurate.
add something with from receipt.
Yeah, I'll figure out some language. I mean, it's not receipt because, you know, you can get
Well-
gamesmanship, but it can be, you know, 3-day buffer period or something. I'll build something like that in there.
Okay.
So number 10, when we started talking about what we were looking to change in 9, extenuating circumstances and such, we'd have to correct language in number 10, because if upon inspection during the second or third, and I thought maybe if upon inspection during any extensions, it is found that progress has stopped, a final notice is issued and that the code violations must be cured within the remaining time period granted. What do you think of that change?
During any extension?
So if upon inspection during any extension or extensions, it is found that progress has stopped, a final notice is issued. It does stick within the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish. And it allows, it doesn't confine to extensions and maybe the extensions become substantial, but maybe we work with somebody for some period of time and they just flat out stop, well, then we can now issue final notice.
I'm fine with that. Sounds good.
Then the only other, well, I got a couple others, sorry. 20, back page of the red line. Says if within 12 months, the property coming in, of the property coming into compliance, property owner, resident of adjoining or adjacent property or trustee supervisor submits a complaint, the property once again exhibits the same violations, repeat offender notice will be issued. Including to but not limited to double in fines. And I'm more in favor of reducing the 12 to 6. Rest of the language could stand.
So you're addressing more the repeats.
Basically, it is addressing more of the repeats. It's being a little bit more lenient on a repeat. I know you said you like the 12 bill, but I think the spirit here is that they're confined to, if they repeat within 12 months, you're clean again. Right.
I disagree.
Okay.
I think 6 months is way too short. You put an awful lot of time and effort to come into compliance. I think they should be held to a 12-month standard.
Okay.
Yeah, but not limited, including but not limited to double the fines. And this is what goes back, Pete, I addressed a couple weeks ago with you. What happens with the property that comes into compliance? And then all of a sudden now it becomes 366 or something thereabouts, and we're right back to it, maybe summer to summer, spring to spring type deal, and we're right back to the same thing. Why would the process repeat itself, giving them the same amount of time with no additional repercussions?
But you're comfortable with if it's 12 months and that the slate becomes clean?
At some point, we do have to wipe the slate clean, yes.
Okay, I'll back off of that one. The next item down, monthly report. I just have a little problem with not knowing what it's going to have in it.
I think we're going to work through that together.
Well, right. So I have some edits. We're going to be voting on this document this evening. I think that it should just be the village board will be provided with a monthly report, and that provided by whoever it's tasked with. Is it the clerk? Is it the property maintenance officer? Or is it the administrator? I don't think it should be content to be determined. As the information is needed, it's needed. And I'm not looking to get detailed information, but I'm also not looking to get an abbreviated version that's difficult to review either.
So we can just take out the words in a form and content to be determined.
Yeah.
So provided a monthly report by the administrator, property, whoever, right?
Right.
Okay, good with that.
And the final item that I have, once we get somewhere with this tonight, is that I think it needs to be included with this, that we have a unique scenario right now. We have a number of people. I don't know if it's 6 because I don't get reports. I don't know if it's 12. I don't know if it's 24, how many people we have with open violations currently at this moment that have not made it to court. So that's a caveat. Ones that have still within the realm of our of the village, that all of those be subject to re-review, and if the original complaint has been satisfied, that their case be closed. I don't know where that would be best fit, but it is very applicable. No, in no way, shape, or form should anybody with an open, in my opinion, nobody with an open complaint and enforcement that hasn't made it to court yet should be subject to old rules. But maybe that's how it works, but that's a concern of mine. How do we accomplish that tonight?
Well, I think you'd accomplish that at an evening where once you've adopted this and then you start getting a monthly report where you know what is still out there, then you can start making decisions whether you're going to continue to pursue enforcement or you're just going to drop it or what have you.
Well, I guess let me re-clarify. There's people who are currently dealing with a number of items that were added by the code enforcement officer above and beyond the original complaint, and are dealing with that right now. How do we allow them to be subject to the newly adopted, whatever it is we come up with here shortly, and not subject to items added by the enforcement officer.
Well, I think once you get that monthly report, you can simply indicate that all of those pending matters are subject to this policy.
I guess I don't agree that we'd have to wait for a report to do that.
Well, so the reason I don't know what's out, I have no idea. I'm not your municipal prosecutor. I have no idea what's out there. And so I'd be careful about putting language in here that could interfere with some kind of ongoing municipal prosecution, but I'm giving you an idea how you would be able to handle this. You adopt this tonight with changes, and then you get your monthly report. We can start rolling up our sleeves and trying to tackle those concerns that you're raising.
And I don't disagree with that. And Pete, to your point earlier, I think that monthly report would indicate the original violation and any subsequent violations found as a result of John going out there. And those items we can take up a discussion on and a course of action.
And I like that idea, except for the only time that we actually have power as individuals is as a group when the meeting is open, and then that power ends when it closes. So would we have to then have an agenda item to specifically review the open items? And I guess that's how do we accomplish what you just framed right there?
Could be an open agenda item every meeting,
month.
correct?
It could be, but I have no how many you have out there.
Right. But what I'm saying is it would be review and take action as appropriate or as necessary or as needed, whatever.
Would another way to do this be we could have another agenda item for the next meeting to say that we'd like to, as a blanket statement, have all open items, cases reviewed for compliance, and give that kind of like as a yay or nay vote by the board, which would provide the direction which has been discussed.
But aren't we doing that? If we review the
That's
list?
what I think. Yeah, I think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And
When do we do that?
I
In
don't know
session
that-
as an agenda item, right?
It would be an ongoing agenda item, much like we see on here,
Okay.
administrator's report.
be under property maintenance.
I do got a question though. Can we supersede our our lawyer?
No,
That's for the board. Well,
think
everything
so.
that you're talking now is underneath the boards or underneath the judges.
No, my request was anything that hasn't made it to circuit court that's still within underneath our
Well,
house.
Circuit court's a different one. Is it not circuit courts? Kenosha?
even municipal court, I think
Municipal.
even
Yes, anything that hasn't made it to municipal court yet, basically
any court.
any court whatsoever. It's just
Yeah.
inside of
We have no
notice of
jurisdiction over that.
violation. How do we take care of that?
No, the last three I went, the last. three I
Okay,
got.
let's stay on task, please. Okay, so Ramsey, we obviously have some changes here and we have some additions that you need to work into here. I doubt that we can adopt this tonight because we do not have a final version with the final wording. Am I correct on that?
Well, I can identify, right. Let me get you a fresh draft.
Is it possible, if I were to make a motion, that we stay in notice of violation for all current ones until we hammer this out and bring it up at the next board meeting? So the clock on all violations would come to a complete stop until we got to the next meeting?
I think you'd have to have that separately agendized.
Yeah, you can't. It's not.
Can we call a separate meeting to happen in the next 24 hours, whatever
No.
necessary to do that?
You have to 24-hour notice.
48 hours?
I don't have time. I'll be out of town. But maybe on maybe before Monday's meeting. I don't know what we can talk about that.
I think the public would like us to come up with something, honestly, President. I don't mean to be so pushy here, but there's a lot of people here this evening that need this. When we opened this subject tonight, we said we were going to come to a resolution. If we can't come to a resolution, we should do something. And if that is set another meeting date so that we can open an agenda item and that we publicize, then we should do that.
Well, we have another meeting date already. It's the budget meeting on Monday. So you could technically call a special meeting before the budget or even after the budget.
After.
Is that something we have to make a motion for that we can just set up to do and it gets on the agenda?
I don't think we need to make a motion. I think we need to
It's not on the agenda, so I don't think, but the consensus would be to do that.
There's no.
Okay, so Ramsey, you're going to add, take out some of those and add the paragraph about extenuating circumstances. Also, in number 6, the not less than 30 days unless the code states otherwise. And then just make a few deletions.
Yeah, the changes again are, there's
No.
about 5 or 6 of them. There's once or twice where there's a reference to village staff and village administrator. I'll collapse it down to village staff. There is the request to insert life, health or property with reference to the chief, and also to make that consistent with language further down in paragraph 9 where it references health, safety and welfare. So I'll make sure those terms are consistent. Paragraph 6 on the shot clock, build in 3 days to receive the notice and add that the notice shall give the time frame to abate, fix or cure the violation not less than 30 days from receipt unless the code says otherwise. Your ability to come before the board for another extension, we'll just say they can come before the board for an extension. In other words, I'll strike third and final. And the language not to exceed 60 days, I'll insert unless extenuating circumstances. Paragraph 10 will similarly say upon inspection during any extensions, found that progress is stopped. And on the monthly report, strike the language in a form and content determined and provided. I think that was it.
Yep. Everyone on board with those changes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we cannot,
Madam
Wait.
President, so I can make all those changes and give it
Just-
to you in a clean copy. and
Yes.
You can vote to approve it, but you can also vote motion to approve the ordinance subject to those revisions that I just walked through.
okay.
It's the board's call. I mean, it's form over substance.
Mhm.
You can make part of your motion that you're approving it subject to those revisions and bring it back for final review next week.
Okay.
If you want to take a more formal step, you can certainly motion it and do it.
I make a motion that we accept this ordinance, this policy and procedure tonight with the edits as outlined by legal counsel here just now. Thank you.
Second.
Okay. So we have a first by Pulley, second by Faber. Mr. Young, Mr. Gant, Mr. Hopkins.
Yes.
Mr. Barheit,
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Pulley,
Yes.
Mr. Faber,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to number 10, Public Works. Discussion and possible action on the following: 10.1 review of streetlight policy.
In the board portal for your review is a streetlight policy that the town board adopted back in 2006. We have recently received at least 2 more applications for people wanting streetlights, and I wanted the board to have a chance to review this policy since it's been since 2006. So we're all in consensus on how you want staff to proceed with doing the policy first. One obvious change is to replace town wherever it's referred to with village. That's pretty simple. Another recommendation that I had was in the second paragraph, possibly consider replacing the word shall with may when referring this to the village engineer. Because if the board deems that the request is outrageous, unwarranted, and cannot identify a reason for the engineer to review it, we should not be wasting monies on the engineer to review it. So the process is the village engineer shall provide the board with written recommendations based on the two manuals, the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, Geometric Design of Highways and Streets, and the Wisconsin Department of Transportation Facilities Development Manual. They will make a recommendation based on those two manuals. The village board, there's a typo in one paragraph here, the village board shall consider, but the word not should be in there, but not be bound by the engineer's recommendations. The board shall either approve or reject the requested installation. If the board approves the installation, it shall be the policy of the board to assess the initial costs to the person or persons submitting the request. The board may determine the streetlight installation has an overall public benefit and warrants the cost to be borne by the village as a whole, which would mean it'd be on taxes. So I'd like you to take this opportunity to recommend any changes, and I can bring it back to you for final approval if there are any.
I just have one, it's actually clarification. I think I found something in here that answers my question, but when we talk about street lights, we're talking about lights that light up an area, not like a stop and go light at an intersection, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
And Brad, the latest version of this geometric design of highways and streets is dated 20 years ago.
Correct.
They don't, there's not a newer one?
No. I asked the same question several times.
A question where we are requiring the person to pay for the light. Do they also pay for the electricity to it?
Nope, that rolls over onto the,
So that would go back to us.
that's
just
on the
to follow
village.
for that.
Correct.
But they would pay for the light and installation.
They would pay for the installation, yes. If that's what the board approves. The board could approve that taxpayers pay for it because it has an overall benefit for the entire village. Yeah, not just the person requesting it. So if it looks good, I can just make those two changes that I recommended, or if you have more, I'd entertain them.
Out of curiosity, how are these usually requests by, like, say, in residential areas? Are these usually requests like in commercial, or is it just a mix?
It's both. A lot of them are intersections, but a lot of them are just the residential in the smaller lot subdivisions.
The two that you have now, they're residential.
Yes.
Well, if you're looking for a motion to rewrite this with those changes, I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
I do have a question though. Does it have anything there if it's one that's not approved by us that we're gonna pay for, if somebody else wants to pay for it? Do the neighbors have any say so over that?
They would have our nuisance ordinance, but if they want to do it on private property and they contact We Energies, we don't have a say in it.
Okay. Well,
Except
technically,
as
the
far
light
as-
pole is public property or is,
Not if they install one on their own property.
well, not, I don't worry about, it. I'm just saying if it's like.
If it's in right of way, yeah, then we have the ultimate say. But if
Right,
it's on
so-
private property, that's still different.
Yeah, this is a street light.
Okay, so we have a first by Faber, second by me to direct staff to make the changes to the streetlight policy as noted. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Great. Thanks. 10.2, resolution 2024.10-109, a resolution to vacate the alley between tax parcels 704-120-321-0825 and 704-120-321-0890, 28503 117th Street, Valmar subdivision.
Motion to approve.
Hopkins and Gant. Questions?
Is, it was signed off by the other neighbor?
Correct. Both
for
abutting,
access?
both abutting neighbors signed off on it.
So is the end result of this, what we vote on tonight, that parcel will be divided into two equally and then those two neighbors would get it, or what happens to that parcel?
Currently, the owner of Kalmar Cafe is looking at paying the expenses to do this and take that entire alley, and the other property owners. good with it.
So then would we actually be receiving some form of compensation for that land? it sounds like they're paying for the necessary legwork. But my question is, with that legwork, once it's completed, are we actually selling that to the Kalmar Cafe area or no?
Typically on road vacations, we have not received compensation for them.
Pete, that is a weed overgrown piece of land. You don't want anything to do with it.
Okay, so just curious how that changing of a public roadway or I guess village owned property, is that accurate to private ownership?
We did a portion of that 2 years ago.
22, yes.
Yeah, 2 years ago, we did from 118th to where it's at now. And we just abandoned it because people wanted it cleaned up.
Okay.
But it does have a value, 33 feet by 100 feet.
Is that the size, roughly 33 by 100?
This one is 16 feet by 67 long.
Yeah.
16 feet wide.
So we get that back in the form of taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
That side, you're gonna get too much out of it, 16 feet wide.
Okay, that's the only questions I had.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. 10.3, approval to send the 2008 white Ford Explorer to Wisconsin surplus online auction.
I'll second.
Young in favor. Any questions? Okay. All in favor?
No question.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
No questions, Billy, about your water patrol vehicle?
All right, number 11,
Hey,
Fire Rescue
Rita?
Department.
I
Rita?
actually had a statement to make
Oh,
on that
sorry.
one, so no worries. So that is the second Village Hall vehicle, so we will be down to no Village Hall vehicles other than the one that we use for the highway type stuff here. The first vehicle we brought to you last month, it smokes when you try to drive it. It is not functional anymore. This vehicle, we have had it cleaned twice. It has such a rancid odor. You can't even be in it without the windows down. And we had a staff member break out into hives from it. So it had a severe mouse infestation and it cannot be cleaned. We have tried. So I'm just letting you know that we will be seeking to replace 2 vehicles with one of a lesser value, probably like a sedan, something less expensive than an SUV. Just total transparency. So I don't want to tell you we're getting rid of it and not replacing it. We need to replace it. It is used daily. So.
And I know we just voted on this item, but after your description of just how bad it is in there, are we maybe bound to disclose such conditions upon its departure?
Not on an auction.
I guess that's just a concern of mine to throw out there.
Billy never discloses his.
I needed to be transparent with you.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Work. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go 11, Fire Department. Discussion and possible action on the following items. 11.1, status of fire truck refurbishment.
Good evening, board. Thank you for the time tonight. Just a quick update. Brian, you want to throw a picture up? Can you do that? You've got in your portal, most recent description of what's going on with the upgrade and refurbishment of 5818. We're nearing completion on that, and it should be near delivery at the end of this month, end of the 1st of November. In the next meeting, I'll be coming forward to you for final payment information and acceptance of the apparatus. But as you can see with some of the pictures, there's been a great deal of upgrades and changes that are made. And unfortunately, we've encountered a few things that we didn't we speculated that there might be concerns with the truck. One of them being we had to replace the entire pump. This picture that you see here is the pump insert. The entire pump had to be replaced because in inspection as part of the refurb, they found that there were holes in the actual pump housing itself. It was not a circumstance that it could be welded shut and repaired efficiently. So we determined the best course of action was to replace the pump. If you recall from the initial part of this, we wanted to have a piece of apparatus that would last us an additional 10 to 15 years. And the frame and underlying of this truck was very well suited for that purpose. But it would be remiss and irresponsible on our part if we didn't bring it to current industry standards. So we had to replace the pump. The additional cost overrun to the pump was $43,000 with everything included. So there are a few other things that we will bring forward to you in the next meeting as far as details and information. But right now, this truck is on schedule to be delivered right around the first of the month of November. Questions on that particular piece?
No, you warned us early on, chief, that that pump was questionable.
Yeah.
Still cheaper than a fire.
Yeah,
a brand new.
we wanted, it was a good piece of equipment to start with, but in any time you start taking these apart, unfortunately, you find things that need to be addressed. And we're very confident that this is going to be at least industry standard and by far a third of the cost of a new piece of equipment in half the time to get it. So
Yeah.
In terms of that, we're pleased with where we're at so far.
Okay, perfect.
The
Okay.
second item
11.2 update on Station 2.
is current status of the transfer of title for Station 2.
Thank you for pointing out how short I am. You just told me this microphone was way too tall for me. I appreciate it. All right. So I just wanted to provide you an update on Station 2. I provided you some detail in the board portal over the weekend that details out the whole timeline starting in 2023. So in 2023, we began the efforts of trying to do some renovations to Station 2. Station 2 is the station that is about a half-mile south of Paddock Lake on Highway 83, or otherwise known as Antioch Road. We received some estimates in 2023 as to what that cost would be to renovate that facility. The estimates at that time were around $145,000 to $150,000. In January, the staff was reassigned to who was going to be managing the renovation of Station 2. And due to the significant cost of the renovation in March of 2024, the village board received a presentation regarding the renovation and the desire to transfer the station from the Salem Volunteer Fire Association to the Village of Salem Lakes. As the estimates from 2023 were approximately $150,000, and it did not include all of the items that need to be addressed. Over the next few months, staff worked with the association to find information regarding the association's bylaws, the FEIN number, the title and lien information, and additional items that would be needed to transfer the building from the association to the village. Additionally, in March of 2024, the association president, Ragnar, took a poll of the association members on if they would be in favor of transferring the building to the village. He received 20 yes responses. He then convened a meeting of the association on June 12th of 2024 to formalize the vote in person so that they could provide minutes to the attorney to finalize the transfer of the title. The vote passed. And it was indicated that their secretary would actually provide the minutes as well as the Ragnar and their secretary, Jess, would be the signatories on the title transfer documents. Multiple times between June 12th and current, the village has requested in person, over the phone, and in writing copies of the minutes from that meeting. And on August 28th, we were told that we would receive those minutes tomorrow, which would have been August 29th. On September 5th, both of those people resigned or retired from our village. They don't work for us anymore. And we have yet to receive those minutes or anything that concretes the fact that this meeting happened on June 12th. On September 11th, the village became aware that the Salem Volunteer Fire Department was administratively or involuntarily dissolved on June 13th of 2020 and had been delinquent on their association paperwork with the state of Wisconsin financial institutions since April 1st of 2019. They were provided a notice of administrative dissolution on April 13th of 2020. Additionally, the Salem Volunteer Fire Department Association had their 501c3 revoked on May 15th of 2014. This classification is what allows them to be tax exempt, which means that they actually should have been probably paying taxes since 2014. At this moment, I'm not actually sure how to proceed. We don't believe, I don't believe that the village should be investing $100,000 to $200,000 into a building that we do not hold title to with an organization that has not maintained good standing with the Department of Financial Institutions and has been delinquent multiple times since 1996 and has been administratively dissolved twice. In the short term, this is a 24-hour response fire station with sleeping quarters, and the village does have to actually take some action to make some necessary and small improvements to that facility. These things that are not negotiable that we do have to spend money on, and you will see coming across for budget approval, well, not even budget approval, but just you're going to have to approve them. I'm going to approve them and I'm going to ask you to approve them. Non-negotiable items, we need to have a hot water heater next to the sink. There's zero hot water in that sink. That's not negotiable. This is a living facility where people sleep. We need to have, well, we would like to have an installation of a dishwasher. Again, it's a living facility. A purchase of a few items for the day room. If you haven't been in there, their couch is collapsing. It doesn't, they have a wooden block holding it up currently. And the furniture is completely falling apart. That's not how we should be treating our staff and our firefighters. And then some simple paint on the walls just to spruce it up a little bit, make it a little brighter, a little happier space to be in. Additional improvements will have to wait. These items include things such as, but not limited to, renovation of both bathrooms. We had planned to make them both ADA compliant, and they are very, very outdated, and there are plumbing issues. It takes an extended amount of time before you can get any hot water in those. These are firefighters and paramedics. They're responding to scenes. They're coming back covered in stuff they need to wash off themselves. And so we do need to repair those bathrooms and the plumbing. We also would like to have installation of egress windows in both of the sleeping rooms. There are no egress windows in there. There are doors, but there are no egress windows. Fire department, that should be standard practice. We would like to have installation of privacy walls in the sleeping rooms to separate the male and the female sleeping areas and to provide privacy for changing and sleeping. It is a wide open room. You can walk in there, and if you are a male, you can see a female. And if you are a female, you can see a male. There is zero privacy whatsoever for your ability to sleep or change. And then we would like to replace the double doors to the fire station as you can see daylight through them. That's not great for energy efficiency or security. So those are some of the things that have to wait on if there is going to be a title transfer or not. I don't know what else to tell you right now, but in the spirit of transparency, that is where we're at. And I just thought it was appropriate to provide a full and transparent public update.
So how do we, or who do they still legally own the building then? An association that was disbanded?
Yes, they still do legally own the building. They could reconvene as an association, refile all their paperwork and be administratively reinstated. They have been dissolved twice in the past. They were able to be reinstated twice in the past. And they can refile all their paperwork.
Okay, are we putting them on the tax roll now?
I mean,
Yes.
it should.
Yes.
They don't
Absolutely.
have their paperwork. They're not compliant.
Go back on the text.
They need to go back on the tax roll.
And does that take them back to 2014 when they should have?
I don't believe so. I don't know how that works. I'd have to ask. That's outside of my scope of expertise.
You know what the story is? You play nice in the sandbox, just let it hang for a bit. Things will work itself out. You're not gonna have real problems, I don't think. So, just continue what you're doing. Don't stick a lot of money into it until they figure out what they're doing for sure. You're not good.
I don't have any recommendations. I'm seeking direction from the board. We have to do the required creature comfort things because it is a living facility. You have to have hot water at a sink to wash your dishes. You know, there are things we have to do.
Yeah.
I always play nice. At least I think so. Maybe other people don't think so, but I like to work with people. I like to work in the spirit of collaboration. We have been working on this since 2023. And they had their meeting in June. We were told in March they took their vote. I have been very patient waiting. I'm continuing to wait. But for the board, I had to provide you an update because otherwise you and the public are going to be wondering, why isn't anything happening? Well, this is why.
We're
nothing's
using
happening.
it Do the minor ones that you have, don't do the major stuff. My opinion, do the minor stuff we get, it's gonna end up here. It's just a process of getting there. All right. just
Have
do
there
what we
been
gotta do, it's
ongoing
just the same as the rent.
communications? Are they
Communications.
responding? Are they responding to
All
our,
communications stopped by September 5th.
so we've had no communications in over a month?
We asked, neither of them have responded with anything. No communication.
I actually got 2 phone calls this weekend from Rags. First one on Saturday, the second one was yesterday. Yesterday, what he said would happen is that he plans to get a meeting scheduled this coming Thursday for sometime the week following. So they can formalize this vote and go from there.
Last, we leased that building. That we did some repairs. And what we did for $15,000 in the ceiling.
Yep.
What was the problem?
Raccoons.
Right, there's no chasing that.
So I would think we would know something definitive a week from this coming Thursday. No later than a week from this coming Thursday.
Can we potentially, I don't know if this would be correct or not, so correct me if need be. But if they're having trouble coming together, say with paperwork, whatever it might be, can we offer, since we're going to be in receivership of said building, potentially if everything goes well, offer our legal counsel for documentation drafting if they're struggling to get this done and any kind of filing that they would need to do? Can we take over that process or offer to take over that process?
Legal's actually already done the majority of the work, and they've given us direction as to every single step that needed to be done to make sure that it was compliant. The last thing that legal offered most recently was that they could draft something that the association could just simply sign that states that they held this meeting on June 12th and that they took that vote on June 12th and that it affirmatively passed on June 12th. And so I'm waiting to get that document from legal that they just then have to sign that states that that did happen, as I was told that it did.
All right, do we need to do anything? Do we need?
This was just an update.
Informing.
I
Okay,
I
thank you.
don't need any direction right now. Just wanted to provide you an update. If we hear something more, we'll give you that update too. But
Okay.
at the moment, you will be seeing bills for
Mhm.
those non-negotiable type items, and everything else is on hold until a later date.
Got it.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. 11.3 Fire Chief's report.
All right, lastly, just a quick update on the department status. We continue to serve the community and answer calls. September was a particularly busy month for the department. In excess of 168 calls, very public, very busy. 7 air transport calls for trauma injuries and things of that nature. Call volume continues to rise. We gain people, we lose people. We're in a state of revitalization and flux at all times. You'll notice through the budget process that we're hoping to increase and enhance our ability to retain and keep people. We're constantly seeking new firefighters, EMTs, and paramedics, and any support that is provided both through the community and through the board is greatly appreciated. We're open 24/7. We never close, and we continue to serve as necessary.
Chief, I have a question for you. It came to my attention on Friday of last week. And you and I have talked about 2 individuals at the high school, or one actually, who's currently in school going through the fire training.
Yes, sir.
And he also had another person there as well. And I was going to set up a meeting where you could show him around the firehouse.
Yes, sir.
He came to me on Friday and told me that the other person is backing out because she is being sponsored by Bristol.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Well, the question then begs itself, is that something that we do as well? Is this standard that other villages are sponsoring these students?
It's part of the recruitment program. If somebody comes into the department seeking information and perhaps wishing to join the department, interview process, discussion, discovery, see how interested they truly are. If they want to join our department and are willing to give the time and the effort, say to go to firefighter 1 certification or EMT, we will sponsor individual like that. And then part of that is our paying for the class and helping them to grow in the fire service with the expectation, hope that they stay on our department and continue to grow our ranks and strengths. So yes, we do sponsor individuals as they come through.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Again, thanks so much for your support. It's meaningful and we're going to continue to serve in the best way we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
How many Fight for Life calls did we have
We
in
had 7.
September? 7.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Does that include the one that got called off? I'm sorry.
Everything that we called got transported.
Okay. Wasn't there one though flight couldn't fly for some reason?
There was one, yeah, the one day because of foul weather. That's correct. But well, actually, there was one day where both local units were busy, so we got one out of McHenry.
So it would have been 8 though.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Number 12, Treasurer's Office, discussion and possible action on the following. 12.1, approval of vouchers disbursements for September 2024 in the amount of $835,422.29 as reviewed and presented.
I think everything was placed in the portal for your review. If there were any questions or comments.
I have one, there's a toilet replacement for $3,900. Anybody told me that?
Correct. I believe those were the toilets for the women's and for the women's restroom here at Village Hall. And men's restrooms.
They were all replaced.
Correct.
They all needed to be replaced. Yeah.
And it was turning out to be about $500 to $600 to repair each one individually.
Got it.
It was actually cheaper just to replace them.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? I didn't see anything.
Make a motion to approve the disbursement, voucher and disbursements.
I'll second.
Okay, Hopkins in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. 12.2, approval of revenue and expenditure report.
So the revenue and expenditure report should have been placed on the portal for your review as well. At the end of September, we're 3/4 of the way through the year. And if you skip just down to that very last page, you can see that our revenues are right on track at 72% and our expenditures are at 55.53%. So we did see those tax settlements for August come through. I did do that giant journal entry that then put all those revenues in the proper accounts. So you see that those revenues did greatly grow since the last reporting period.
Thank you. I make a motion to approve the revenue and expenditure report.
Second.
Bucher and Hopkins. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. 12.3, Treasurer's monthly report.
Just wanted to review the budget timeline once again, what we have remaining. We do have one more budget workshop planned for next Monday at 5 o'clock. We did have it tentatively scheduled from 5 to 6 p.m. I'm guessing that's going to go over, so just plan to be here as long as we need. Also, later this month, we're going to be doing the budget notice in the paper that does need to be submitted and noticed 15 days prior to the public hearing, which we do have tentatively scheduled for November 18th at 5 p.m. before the regularly scheduled board meeting.
Okay,
So come next week with any questions, comments, or changes.
thank you.
Welcome.
Number 13, Clerk's Office, discussion and possible action on the following items. 13.1, approval of minutes from the September 16th, 2024 Village Board meeting. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Bucher and Hopkins, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 13.2, general election update.
The clerk's office held our final poll worker training these last week. We had a couple dozen people in attendance. We are now fully staffed for the general election, and in-person voting will begin October 22nd.
Anyone have any questions? All right. Okay, number 14, closed session, 14.1, closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85 sub 1 sub G for purposes of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or may be involved, specifically concerning fence claims brought by Kevin Schrage involving adjoining property owners made under Wisconsin statute, chapter 90's fencing dispute law.
So moved.
Hopkins and Gant. Mr. Polly,
Aye.
Mr. Faber,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Gant,
Yeah.
Mr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Barheit. I'm a yes. We're in closed session. Okay. I made the motion to, here, 14.2, reconvene into open session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 sub 2 for possible additional discussion and or action concerning any matter discussed in closed session and or any unfinished item remaining on the agenda. I made the motion to reconvene into open, seconded by Barheit, and it was a unanimous decision. I will also make a motion to direct staff as discussed in closed session.
Second.
Mr. Polly,
Yes.
Mr. Faber, Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Gant,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Barheit.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Motion is unanimous.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hopkins and Polly, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? We're adjourned.